हेलो।
जी सर किया मैंने,
मेरा
एक्सेप्ट
आवाज आ
कर
रही है?
लीजिए।
हैं?
हाँ बाफना जी, गुड मॉर्निंग।
गुड मॉर्निंग, गुड मॉर्निंग। मैंने आर यू हियरिंग?
यस यस सर।
ओके ओके।
सुनीत भाई मॉर्निंग।
गुड मॉर्निंग, गुड मॉर्निंग।
सुनीत भाई आवाज आ रही है?
क्या? वेरी वेल। गुड मॉर्निंग टू ऑल। सुनीत दागा साहब।
विराट भाई
गुड मॉर्निंग सुनीत जी। सुनीत जी गुड मॉर्निंग।
ऑडियो बंद लग रहा है सुनीत भाई।
जा रहे हो? तो शुरू हो रही है 10। ओके, जाके आ गई। ओके, तब ठीक है।
हाँ जी सर। हाँ हेलो। एक मिनट सर, काम किया। बताइए विराट भाई।
वेबिनार एक बार क्लोज कर दीजिए।
हाँ
हो गया, 10 से स्टार्ट हो गया, तो अटेंडेंस ऑल्सो लिस्ट एंड लिखा
मैं म्यूट ही करना है ना।
Good morning, friends. Today we have a third day and last day for this IBC awareness series. Would like to request TC Bafna ji to introduce today's first speaker, Mr. Daga ji.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to welcome and introduce our new speaker. Today's new speaker, Shri Salab Dagaji of an IP. He is a chartered accountant with registered IP insolvency professional. He is a chartered accountant since before last 18 years, and he is with last in IP since last 3 years. He is also a senior partner with JLN US company Ahmedabad. He has been taken various cases under the insolvency and liquidation matters so far. He is having experience in risk-based audit, forensic audit, functional audit, revenue audit, concurrent audit, etc., etc. And he delivered a number of lectures on the insolvency laws. He is authorized books on the KYC and AML published by ICI. He is a regular contributor on budget books and the other articles, other books and magazines and etc. He was a co-opted member of the WRCI ICI, and he was convener of so many study circles. Special welcome to our new.
No, not yet.
And any siphoning, any financial misreporting or any kind of transaction, even the transaction which we have discussed earlier, they had a time frame. If I talk about fraudulent trading, so again, intention comes into mind. So if I as a corporate debtor have done anything fraudulently with a fraudulent intention of my in my mind, if I've done anything of that sort, so, and me as a resolution professional through a forensic auditor have identified that this kind of fraud is being done. The beauty of this section is there is no time frame. Like in there, you have to go only back till 2 years. Here, you can go long back. Normally, it happens like this. Any insolvent company which comes under say insolvency, you will find those are basically the operations are closed for last 2-3 years. So normally in last 2 years you will not find any transaction. Whatever was done prior to that only. Like once the going operation aspect of the company was about to come to an end during those periods. So this section helps in those kind of cases, and it empowers the resolution professional to decide the scope of the forensic auditor to give them a period, even longer than 2 years. So any kind of fraud discussed earlier, or maybe any other kind of fraud which doesn't fall under specific category of these 3 sections, this can always be, those can always fall under section 66. So very good section. This also comes under forensic this. The moment I become a forensic auditor, it comes with certain responsibilities and obligation. It's like the moment I am being appointed, okay, I have certain responsibility as a forensic auditor. These days, if you see, in fact, the resolution professionals, the COC, which are also part of decision making once a forensic report is being given. So these are being, the forensic auditors are being insisted to form an opinion. So whatever you do, based on the available documents, you may have to form an opinion. So your responsibility includes fact finding of the cases, and a chronology and a trail is to be built. The moment you find a fact, you need to bring a trail. You have to form a trail. How the money is being rotated. That also is responsibility of a forensic auditor. One more very important aspect is you have to collect evidence directly, indirectly. You have to collect evidence. Very important. Without evidence, forensic auditors, whatever you are saying or writing a report may be correct based on what you have maybe observed or seen, but then collecting evidence is a must in forensic auditor because these needs to be put in the code of law. So without evidence, it doesn't work. Then you have to quantify. You have to quantify whatever you have done. Try to quantify. Certain circumstances, this may not be possible, but even with one or two, possibilities, you should quantify. Then only, your report becomes effective. You have to provide an opinion, like opinion to the RP, that what should be done. Those kind of opinions should always be there. Whether these are clear report, or those should be RP should go and file to the adjudicating authority. So providing opinion has become very necessary these days. Then you have to write a report. You have to find a report, a very good report, in a very well defined manner, in which it comes with all the methodology by which you have done, and it comes out well with your conclusions. So that is also your job, and the report should be such that those can be used under court of law. You may also, depends on the scope and your engagement letters, you may be asked to appear in the court also. Yes, primarily it is the duty of the resolution professional to form an opinion and file it to the adjudicating authority. But then yes, you may always be asked if it becomes a say civil liability or a criminal liability under section 66. You may be asked the CBI to go and answer. You may be called by the enforcement directorate to give your opinion. So you have to be ready for that also. But yes, if you've done a good work, nothing to worry. You always go and do it. There are some techniques like other than normal audits which we have to in these cases what we have to do is if you can involve an industry expert, like particular industry experts are they can very easily find out certain ratios, the way the sales values, cost of goods sold. So if you can involve, nothing like it. So one is a financial forensic, but unless and until you understand the business, unless and until you understand the intention which can be, so those gives a very good insight. So if you can involve the industry expert, you can use many applications which we are also using. You can also go and see, even if you don't start the work, you can go to Insta Financials, and you can see how they give the reports of the companies. Most of the things are freely available. You can go and see what kind of relationship, basically relationship of directors and company with other companies and directors, the important aspect in forensic audit. So they give a very good report. So you should be able to use those websites very effectively. Duplicate ghost employees, if you can find, this is also one of the way many a times this forensic is being done. Doing the independent visit to the auditee's premises, independent visits gives you an idea once you go how things are being done. You can talk to the people at a lower level, they give you what things are going on in the company. You should be able to understand the lifestyle of the KMPs, their social media profiling, all you should be able to judge. Then financial, which you always normally do, non-moving creditors and debtors, that you should see. And detailed analysis of annual financial statements, their trends, excessive provisionings, write-offs, background checks. It also helps. This non-recurring expenditures, whether the company is following the law, gaps, etc. or not. Analytical review, subsidiaries, associate companies. Normally, diversions are being done with this only. Exceptional items of the statement of profit and loss account. So these are being certain techniques. One more thing which I wanted to add, like of late, digital forensic. So you as a forensic auditor may have to, most of the CAs know these days these techniques, but then you may have to learn some digital forensic techniques, including this email spoofings, and there are many things. So now normally these days frauds are being done through that medium only. That may also we may have to. In our course also, like the ICAI which conducts FAFD, they also teach you certain that kind of techniques also. So this is what I have to say. There's a case of Anuj Jain IRP versus Axis Bank. Supreme Court has let down very simply, like, you know, how you have to do this audits. He was a IRP for JP. So, you know, they have laid down, it's like, first of all, you have to verify all the transactions within the 2 years of period. Then all the shortlisted transactions, put them in a two bucket, you know, one is related party and another is non-related party. The related, the 2 year time frame, not related, the 1 year time frame. It's a volumetric work, huh? Certain times. So that you have to, you know, see all those specific transactions, whether they fall under PU, FE, preferential, undervalue, forensic or extortionate transaction. Yes, if you find related and non-related both, or maybe one, take those, form an opinion, file it to the adjudicating authority. The adjudicating authority will order, and the only thing is, you know, just a small difference, you know, if you find certain transactions, was being told in the case law also, if you find certain transaction which is preferential in nature. So again, normally, if it is preferential in nature, then no need to go into detail and find out whether this fall under other categories also. So, you know, there's a difference between a preference and a, you know, say other transaction or undervalued transaction. Normally, in undervalued transaction or a transaction in which, you know, I have an intention to defraud a creditor, intentions are being checked. While in preference, intentions may not be there, but then, you know, a preference is being given. I may be allowed in those cases, maybe by law, but then also, instead of, you know, I had a choice of two, but then I had given preference to one. But in other, intention plays a major role. So this is how forensic audits are being done. A vast topic. If you can find some study material, even videos online, ICAI website, a lot of material is available. Go, if there is anything, if I can be of any help, you can always write to me, you can always WhatsApp to me and mail to me, and I'll revert to it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Virat bhai. Hope I'm on time.
Thank you so much. Now we would like to request Sunit Bhai to come. Sunit Bhai is there?
Hello.
So meanwhile, there are a few questions.
Hello.
If you can take the question.
Am I audible?
Yeah, I can hear.
Hello.
Yes, you are audible. Just put a presentation on the screen. And Dagaji will take a question after the Sunitji session. Is that
Not an
fine?
issue.
So we are in the last session now. Sunitji, please start the session.
Yes, Virat bhai. Hello, friends. I welcome you all to the last session of this overview on IBC series. So we have been like 3 enthralling day with so much of matter that has come up with each and every faculty coming up with new and innovative ways of letting everyone know about the insolvency. So step by step we have gone ahead. So we started with the filing of the petition to appointment of an interim resolution professional. to appointment of resolution professional and the duties and the rights of the IRP and the RP. So after appointment of the resolution professional take the charge of the company, and all this has been discussed. So appointment of valuers is being done, like 3 classes of valuers will be done. Total 6 valuers are being appointed, and we avail the valuation reports from valuers. So even in the previous session,